If you're watching this, I think it's safe to say that you and I share a couple things in common. One of them is going to be an interest in woodworking, especially with hand tools, and the other one is going to be chair making. This is going to be a two-part series on making chairs, and I use Windsor techniques, which generally means that there's a solid seat that everything sockets into. But beyond that limitation, I think you'll find there's a lot of different ways to make chairs using whatever materials you have, whatever skills you have, and whatever interests you might have. It seems to be a technology that I can push and pull all sorts of different ways. I can make more contemporary things, or I can make more traditional things and be very satisfying doing either. I can also use dried wood from the lumber yard, like this, that was sawn, or I could use wood that I'm going to split from a log. In the first part of the series, I'm going to cover what you can do without using green wood, although I am going to cover green wood because I think what we do with the green wood is relevant even when you're not using it. In the second part of the series, we're going to make this more traditional piece, and we are going to use some green wood, but I'm also going to cover techniques that you can use if you don't have green wood accessible to you. That seems to be one of the big limiting factors, and my goal in this video is to remove whatever is limiting you from making your chairs, because really this technology is as simple as drilling a hole and whittling a peg to fit in it and knocking it home. I mean, that sounds like a gross simplification, but I think once you get into it, you'll realize that a lot of the other stuff is just window dressing on what is a very simple process. Like a lot of simple processes, though, it's going to involve some new tools to you and some new techniques. And I'm going to try and show you an array of ways of doing things so that it can suit whatever you have interest in and at hand. And I think you're going to find it's actually very flexible. You can get away with very little, and you can also spend a lifetime, I think, deepening your understanding of these techniques. The project we're going to focus on in this first video is making this perch here. And the perch is basically a seat that has sort of a forward stance to it so that you can sit on it and keep your back more easily upright. We're going to talk a little bit more about the ergonomics in a minute, but first I want to talk about the materials and the technology involved. I really love this piece because it's relatively fast to make, and you can do the entire thing out of one species of kiln-dried wood if you want, like I did with this. This is actually air-dried, but if, you could do with this walnut, or I mix species like I do in this one, which is in process with a butternut seat and some white oak legs. It really allows you to play with the materials just a little bit more, as long as they meet the strength requirements and the ease of carving requirements. I think you're going to find yourself pretty satisfied. So whatever you have at hand is probably going to work out well. I think maple works great for these legs, as well as ash. You could do the seat out of poplar. You could do it out of basswood. You can do whatever you want as far as that goes. You're not carving this all too deeply, so I don't think you're going to find yourself really struggling regardless of the material choice. I'd probably stay away from hardwoods that are super dense, like an oak. In this case, because I had oak legs, but I wanted it to match the seat, I decided to go with butternut, which plays really nicely with the white oak. As far as the technology goes, you can see we're going to get a chance to do some really fun carving on this. The general undercarriage here is pretty simple. It's a simple T. The sightlines for that are really simple as well. I like this as an introductory project because I think you're going to be able to find your way to it with really simple tools and just a great focus on what these new techniques are and how to do them well, so that later when we get into more complicated projects, you have that in hand and it's not so shocking to you to try and take it all on at once. I think this is a great introductory project, and I think you're going to find it very useful around the house as well. I don't think it's a controversial statement to say that sitting has a pretty bad rap, and I think there's some pretty good reasons for that. We are definitely built to stand up. We've got our spine and a bunch of musculature in front of it, and our leg muscles and the tilt of our pelvis. All these things are designed to work really well when we're standing and moving around. Obviously, we're bipedal. But we do sit, and we sit for a lot of reasons. Some is to give us rest, some is to work, and each chair has to be sort of attuned and designed thinking about what the use is going to be. I want to point out, when you do sit in general on a standard chair, what some of the problems are, so you can see how hopefully some of these other thoughts on sitting help address them. So if I come here and I come down into the chair like this, my knees have now gone close to the level of my pelvis. And that creates a problem. My hamstrings, the back of my legs here, are really pulling, and they're trying to roll my pelvis back. Okay? To make it even worse, this chair is ever so slightly tilted back, and I'll go into that in a minute. But as that happens, what's going to happen is I'm going to slump over. It's just a natural position to take. You have to work pretty hard and have a pretty good amount of flexibility if you want to stay forward like this in a chair like this. Okay? It's going to be tiring after a while, and really everything seems to be pulling me back in this direction. And one of the reasons for that in a chair like this with a back is that basically I'm taking a system that works with me standing, of the alignment of my spine and my pelvis and my legs, and I'm collapsing it. I'm really breaking it of what makes it work. But if I sit like this, by having that slight tilt on this chair, as I collapse, the chair is there, of course, to greet me and to meet me and to help keep me in what is a decent position. It's not going to allow my spine to take any really terrible shapes, any convex shapes like this that are really destructive to the way your spine is built to be. And this is why a chair like this works. You'll see I do things like this, like I might put my hands down here. A lot of times in chairs that don't have a little backward slant here, you're going to see the person sort of sliding forward and out of it. So a slight backward tilt is a good thing. If they do slide out of it, a lot of times what you're going to see when people take this position is that they're going to cross their legs. And they're doing something very specific when they do that. You'll notice that now I've got a foot grounded on the ground and a foot grounded on my knee. I've got this here, and what I've created is sort of a stable base for my pelvis mostly, because my pelvis in this position is not in a good place. Basically, when you're standing, your pelvis is there as a base for your spine, and it connects to everything in all these ways, but one way it is not intended to be is that all the pressure goes right to it. So all that pressure is pushing my pelvis around quite a bit and causing me some strain. This helps lock in that pelvic position and creates a little bit more stability from here up. And that's one of the reasons I think people cross their legs a lot, is because they're not being given that stability via the chair itself. Hopefully, if the chair is well designed, you can sneak your butt back far enough that you get good support back here in your lower back, so that basically that pelvis is sort of locked and stable as it is, and you can stay forward or upright or back pretty comfortably in a position that's going to be good for your spine. So if a chair is working for you successfully, that's great. A lot of times I'm trying to work or I'm trying to do something else, and this is one of my favorite working chairs, and the difference between this and the other chair is it's a little bit taller, which means my knees are lower than my pelvis. That means there's less strain on my lower back, less pressure for my pelvis to rotate, and so I can stay upright on this one much more easily, even though it does tilt back ever so slightly, because my knees are lower. So I can work in this chair a lot, and if I need a rest for my core and I just want to relax, I can come back and I can do this, and that's a very comfortable way for me to be. It has a lot of flex to it, and so I can sit like this for quite a while, come here. I can even move one of my knees lower, or both of them, if I come to the edge of the chair, and now I'm upright much more comfortably for typing or drawing or something where I'm working. That's great. That's one of the things I love this little chair for. It's just very comfortable. You can even sit sideways in it. There's just lots of reasons this has become a real favorite of mine. And now I want to point out what the perch does for me. Now the perch is tall too, and that has a couple of nice things about it. One is I don't have to go down as low as into a regular chair, which means it takes very much less effort for me to get out of the chair. And that's a big deal to me. If I'm working and I'm moving around in my environment a lot, I want to be able to plunk down, do something, and get up without feeling like I'm doing the groaning, standing up from a chair feeling. The other thing it does is it puts my knees much lower than my pelvis, which I like a lot. Not so low that I feel a lot of pressure on my thighs here, but it's definitely lower in a way that makes it really much more natural position for my pelvis, much more like I'm just standing here. Now, when you look at this piece, a lot of folks, including myself in the beginning, thought that just the forward slant is what's really happening here, and that's what's doing it. But in fact, the part where you're sitting is actually pretty neutral. So this part is neutral here, meaning it's only maybe about 2 or 3 degrees tilted forward, but really it's about the fact that this portion here, where your thighs go, slopes much more forward than that. So it really gives a path for your thighs to follow down when your knees are that low. And then the back here comes up just a little bit, and that's going to help roll my pelvis forward as well if I need that extra support. And so what I find is when I sit on this, it really does just trace where my body wants to be in this position. So I've got a little pressure that's very even all around on my underside of my thighs and on the back of my butt here. And then I can just sit pretty naturally. I do think it's important that this area here be just deeply carved enough to hold you just a little bit. You don't want to feel like you're sliding out of this. But a lot of what keeps you from sliding is the fact that you've got your knees planted here. So basically, I'm forming a bit of a tripod. I've got my feet here, and I've got this here. So I've got 1, 2, 3 contact points, and that is what I'm using to stabilize my pelvis. So by having this long leg working for me, to help stabilize my pelvis, it works out great. A lot of you might remember the kneeling chairs from the 80s, especially the early computer chairs. Those sort of did something like this, but the problem with them is they cut off all the leverage I get from my feet and put it from my knees up. And your knees, just like your pelvis, aren't really meant for that kind of pressure. Your feet, however, they're built for it. So the fact that I have all this feedback from my feet when I'm trying to sit here comfortably really helps me out a lot. So while I'm working, I'm moving a lot, and the key to making just about any chair successful is the ability to move. It should never force you into position. It can suggest and support positions, but in general, you need to be able to move from one position to another if you're going to maintain comfort for any extended period. So what I find myself doing a lot when I'm in this is I'll put one leg back or even two legs back, and you can see when I do that, I get a lot more pressure on my thighs for a little bit, but it really pulls my butt right out of the seat, and then I'm just sitting more like in a standing position from my pelvis up, just much more comfortably that way. And when that gets a little tiring, I put my feet down here, I can scooch myself back, and again, I'm back in a more stable position with my feet on the ground. So hopefully you can see how this can become a pretty useful piece of furniture for you, but also it gives you a cue into the fact that when we are asking people to sit, we're basically taking a system that works perfectly and breaking it. So we have to really think a lot about what we're offering in return, and hopefully, this notion that you would just capture the body in a perfect position leaves you, and you can think a little bit more about how a chair becomes almost like a piece of exercise equipment or something that you can work with to make it so that you can do the tasks you want to do while sitting for an extended period.